For the purpose of conducting experiments on the effects of research compounds, Spiderhead is a state-of-the-art correctional facility. People who are formally incarcerated by the state are participating in the initiative as volunteers in order to shorten the amount of time they are required to serve in jail. Both Steve Abnesti, who is known for his warmth and hospitality, and Mark, who works as his assistant, are responsible for overseeing the program. Every prisoner has their own room, is responsible for their own tasks, and is free to move around without being supervised by a guard. Daily doses of a variety of medicines are administered to the participants, and each of these substances causes a change in the subject's feelings as well as their perceptions of their environment. Inmate Jeff, who is still hurting from the fact that he murdered his buddy while driving under the influence of alcohol, is administered N40, a love drug that causes his senses to become distorted and compels him to engage in sexual activity with two of his fellow prisoners. In order to choose which of them should be administered Darkenflox, a medicine that causes tremendous terror and psychological suffering, Steve urges him to make a decision. It is not possible for him to make a decision since, once the effects of the love medication have worn off, he claims that he does not have any specific feelings for either of them. While Steve is administering some N40 to himself, Mark assists him. On the next day, Steve calls Jeff into the observation room and informs him that the higher-ups have determined that Heather, the younger of the two ladies, must be injected with a dosage, even though the injection would only last for 5 minutes. As a result of Heather's damage to her MobiPack, the device that is responsible for administering the medications, Jeff grudgingly accepts, and to his horror, Heather takes her own life while she is under the influence of Darkenflox. This leads Mark to question the effectiveness of their efforts at the institution. While Steve is in a hurry to leave the projection room, he accidentally loses his keys. When Jeff opens the desk compartment that Steve uses, he finds out that there are no higher-ups in the jail. Rather, the institution is managed by Abnesti Pharmaceuticals, which is Steve's corporation. A bingo board was used to find the names of the medications. As Steve too had a MobiPack fitted, the two of them get high together on a laughing medication. Jeff shares the experience. The story that Steve tells Jeff is that his father left him when he was a youngster. Jeff admits to Lizzie, an inmate with whom he has a strong relationship, that he was responsible for the crash that resulted in the death of not just his buddy but also his lover. Before they kiss, Lizzie gives him a hug. Steve is aware of Jeff's sentiments between him and Lizzie. As Mark begins to question Steve's intentions, he eventually loses his composure and breaks down when Jeff confronts him. Jeff takes control of Steve's MobiPack, discloses that Mark has spiked his MobiPack with Darkenflox, and compels Mark to acknowledge that the actual objective of the study is to test a compliance medication called B6. This occurs after Steve requests Jeff to give Darkenflox to Lizzie. In order to put B6 to the ultimate test, which is to determine whether or not they would kill their love when they were instructed to do so, the other medications are essentially side projects that are being employed. Inmates have been under the effect of the obedience medication during the whole time that they have been agreeing to the different tests that were being administered to them. In addition, Steve gives Jeff the information that he had, in fact, completed his term 7 months earlier, whereas Lizzie's request for parole had been denied the week before. With the intention of rescuing Lizzie, Jeff coerces Steve into opening the door to the main entrance, and then he attempts to command Steve to give up the pocket knife. Steve does not comply with the order because he believes that doing so would result in the destruction of the project, which he refers to as the only thing he has ever loved. Instead, he takes his phone and activates all 4 vials of Darkenflox that are included in Lizzie's MobiPack, which causes her to act in a frenzied manner and even attempt suicide during the struggle for dominance between the two. Jeff is successful in disarming Steve, causing damage to his MobiPack in the process. As Jeff tries to help Lizzie, he is able to successfully remove the vials of Darkenflox and tell her that he loves her. However, Steve rises to his feet and commands the other convicts to catch both Jeff and Lizzie. Following their successful overthrow of a number of other convicts and subsequent closing of the main entrance behind them, they are able to successfully escape from Spiderhead. While Mark and the police are getting closer to the island, Steve is attempting to flee on his float plane. However, He is so excited that he crashes into a mountain, and he is now high off of his broken Moby-Pack. During this time, Jeff and Lizzie make their getaway by stealing the only surviving motorboat.